right, hello, Tide fans. Welcome to Tide Talk. I'm your host, Sean Taylor, here with Maurice down on Zoom down in Margaritaville, Panama City Beach, Florida. Maurice, thanks for joining with me today. Obviously, my buddy Jimmy just is struggling, man. He can't make it, so it's just going to be me and you again, kid.
No worries, no worries. As long as I get paid what he would be paid, we're good.
Exactly. Maybe we can get a raise. It's just me and you.
Right.
Maurice, a lot of people were panicking early Saturday. A lot of people were panicking, and you know, I guess I can see that. I never really though was in panic mode. I was disappointed in the way our offense was performing. Felt like our defense was playing really well against Tennessee. You know, you expected them to make some plays. They're a really good football team, but I was in panic mode. Do you have that same thought process?
I wasn't panicking. I was in shock at allowing Joe Milton doing what he was doing. I knew that because our defense is the strongest aspect of our team. I knew that they would eventually settle down, and I was just watching it again last night, and you know you get caught up in the moment, but it was actually just I want to say most of the first quarter because the last two scores that they had in the first quarter, we held them to field goals, which could have very easily been touchdowns. Now,
Yeah.
Tennessee is one of the worst teams in the country in the red zone, but kudos to that defense for really bowing their neck. And, we're caught up in the moment, and y'all were texting, and I think you said, "Bo, where are you?" I was just sitting there kind of trying to analyze, what we were doing wrong offensively and what we needed to do as far as Milrow and offensive line get out. But I told a buddy of mine, I said, that I was watching the game with, I said, we're good for a half. And that obviously was not our half. So I expect something in the second.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I felt like the defense played well enough, and they were on the field a lot. If you go back and look, at the number of plays that Tennessee ran versus the number of plays that we ran in the first quarter alone, I believe it was like 30-11. I mean, it was just, our defense was on the field and they were still competing. As you mentioned, we held them to 2 field goals when they were inside the 10. And so it was good to see us play that way. I just was waiting for the offense to finally catch some type of rhythm. We couldn't run the football early. We couldn't throw the football early. We just looked, I don't know, we just looked really bad offensively. And then, of course, I had some questions about some of the play calls in the first half. But at the end of the day, you go in at halftime, you make an adjustment, and then we come out with the ball in the first half, scoring the first 2 plays, which, by the way, I got to ask you, and a buddy of mine pointed it out. So Cody Massey, a guy that works for me, who also went to Alabama, he pointed out the first play from scrimmage in the second half where Chase gets the run for 29 yards. We had 5 guys in the backfield. We didn't have a line of scrimmage. And it's funny because I watched it and we're set up correctly, and Burton backs off the line of scrimmage and we bring a guy in motion and we got 5 guys in the backfield. But they didn't catch it.
That wasn't the best officiating crew. I know Josh Heupel's got some complaints about it, and we got some complaints as well. But I get the fact that within motion, your formation is only legal, determined to be legal at the snap of the ball. So yeah, Burton stepped off, then better to be lucky than good.
I mean, at the end, as we've said before, No, not the best officiated game that we've seen, but it was on both sides. You know,
Sure, sure.
what kind of what what kind of made me laugh was when we go back and talk about last year's game from an officiating perspective. There wasn't a whole lot of conversation, from Tennessee fans about how bad the officiating was. But when we beat them in our place, it was questionable officiating. And
I don't,
I just want to
really,
say, hey,
Tennessee, you're
take your L, and go back to Knoxville and figure it out.
take your whooping and get the hell out of here. So I was I was glad. Uh, last year's game was just marred in how many penalties did we have in that game? Like
17.
15?
17.
How many? Yeah. So the fact that you know how many did we have one or two? I mean, it's like it was through the third quarter. I remember Danielson saying that Alabama hasn't been penalized yet.
We had one penalty for 5 yards, and I'll be honest, I don't. They replayed it. I didn't understand why it was a snap infraction. He snapped it early; nobody else was looking, but that's not necessarily a penalty.
That's not. That just means that the offensive line's not on the same page with the center, so it's not really illegal snap.
Correct.
I mean, because that comes down to the center, pumping and not snapping the ball. So I mean, heck, I mean, there are plays out there where you tell everybody to stay still except for the center to snap it, and that's
Yeah.
kind of illegal stuff.
But Maurice, let me ask you a question. How important do you think it was that we were able to correct that part of our game? Because it's been a concern really for 2 years now. How important do you think that was in the outcome of the game?
As far as the center of the offensive line bit,
As far as
there was.
us reducing our number of penalties.
Oh, that's huge, and that should be a consistent thing. So, really, theoretically, we should not come back against LSU in 2 weeks and then revert back to our old ways because it's a growing process.
Exactly.
Not to mention, you're at home, so crowd noise can't play an effect in it. Just kind of like I think Danielson mentioned, there was that snap between McLaughlin and Milroe that was, you know, not on the same page. He snapped it when Milroe was making a change or audible. Um, that was really the only time, but it should show a growth. It should show that it's been addressed in meetings and practice. And I thought the other day's performance. I mean, heck, we didn't even have any holding calls on us, and Lord knows our left tackle should be called for that because 27 was getting by him or getting through him pretty good. So,
Yeah.
I mean, heck, that's pretty disciplined because Milroe had a tough first quarter and midway through the second quarter. He had a tough going as far as being under duress. So I think it shows a lot of maturity on the offensive side. Defensive side is already there. In my opinion. Matter of fact, I don't have a problem with saying I think this is one of the best defenses in the country, even though our numbers aren't in the top five. It's the way we are right now. It is phenomenal, in my opinion.
Yeah. You mentioned something that I'm gonna come back to when we come back from the break, and you referenced crowd noise, but I'm gonna bring us back in on the second part of this. But let's take a quick break, and we'll come back and talk about that. So hold your seats, Tide fans. We'll be right back with Tide Talk.
Beam wins it on a last-second kickoff return, and it's all thanks to the Big G. He's only about a foot tall, and he's not great at catching since he doesn't have any arms. But boy, when he does, he's end-to-end in a blink thanks to that 1 gig speed that makes him so special. You can tell his teammates just love playing with him. Maybe a little too much. Gig speed from Beam, made for football, available everywhere.
All right, welcome back, Tide fans. Maurice, right there in that first segment, you mentioned something that I think, first of all, I've never heard in the 17 years that he's been there, I've never heard Saban really call out to the fans and say, hey, we're going to need you to bring some noise. Now, I know he's spoken to the fans before about some things over the course of his time, but man, people that I talked to that were there at the game said it was as loud as they ever heard Bryant Denny. And you know that had an impact in that. I think they had 8 or 9 penalties total, and 5 of them were pre-snap.
Yeah.
I mean,
what's the purpose of having home field advantage if you're not going to bring the noise?
If you can't have that, that's right.
Exactly. So, and most of us, watching this have been to Bryant Denny. It's not as enclosed as Neyland Stadium or even Sanford Stadium in Athens. But, the video that I believe I sent y'all, or Jimmy may have sent it, where we're singing Ramajama at the end of it. At the end of it,
yeah.
I mean, players are walking off the field. It's deafening.
Yeah.
And it gave me chills hearing that. And I'm glad that Coach Saban implored last Thursday night on a show for the fans to show up. And he made a good point. The fans control the momentum.
Absolutely.
So if you bring it, and you can have people there can have a huge impact into the overall frustration of the opponent and trying to hear and just feeling the pressure. So like I've always said, everything changes. Anybody can look good for the first 6 weeks of the season, but when you add pressure and you're on the road, well, now we're going to see what you're made out of.
Yeah.
So,
Maurice, do you feel the same way I do with respect to starting to have a little more confidence in our receiving core?
Oh yeah. I noticed that the other day, and probably some against Arkansas, where you're seeing guys claiming the ball in the air, wanting the ball, balls in the air, balls mine. That type of attitude. I go back to Ardarius Stewart, Amari Cooper, Julio. I mean, all those guys, balls in the air, balls mine. Period. Ball is in the air, get out of my way, I'm getting it. And you see, call them ball hawks. And that usually applies to DBs as far as, I do have a little bias there. But ball's in the air, ball's mine, I'm getting it, and I'm fighting for it, and I want it. Yeah. That's the most important thing. And I know you and I have talked about Burton.
Yes.
I was going to ask you, your thoughts. I think he's had an impact into the attitude, the chip on the shoulder. What do you think? Do you think that his just being out there has had an impact, especially to some of the younger guys? Because this is his 4th year in college.
Well, I think it's good. So I have a couple of opinions about Burton. He is playing with an attitude. And we've said it before. Receivers and DBs have to do that. You have to have an attitude. You're out there on an island most of the time, whether you're on the offensive side or the defensive side. You're playing a lot of one-on-one. So there's some jaw jacking and some smack talking going on because, again, you're out there, kind of in open space where, as opposed to linemen and quarterbacks and running backs, they're in there in the thick of things. So you have to play with attitude. And I think he's doing that, and I like that. I like it because he is an older guy on our staff with respect to the receiving corps. And I think the younger guys need to see that type of attitude. They need to see him making those catches across the middle in traffic, sacrificing, getting hit. And he made a couple of those Saturday. Big time catches, the touchdown catch, and he had a first down catch in the second half that was huge. And, however, I wished that he would just control that. Yeah, just a little bit, because you are playing for the University of Alabama. We have set the expectation that we've been there before, we've done that, and I just wished he would tone that down a little bit. But I do get it from his perspective. You have to have that mentality.
Yeah, he definitely has it, and I just worry about in future games, big games, where it
Penalties. A penalty.
spill over. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You make a big play in a time where you need to, and then you get that negated because of a, unsportsmanlike conduct or something like that. And so that's what I hope someone's talking to him about is, man, bring that attitude, bring it every single time. But after you make that catch, celebrate with your teammates, hand the ball to the referee, and line up again.
Agreed.
So,
but I'm glad he's there.
Yeah, glad we're seeing some receivers, have that attitude, have that mentality. That ball's mine. I'm going to get open. We're starting to see some guys get open a little bit. We've said before, Chase McClellan is running with an attitude. Man, he fought for every yard that he had. I think he ended up with 111 or 112, and he fought for every yard that he had. It wasn't like he was just running free every time he touched the ball. But that's what I believe you get from him if you give it to him 20 times.
He definitely gets in that zone. He's definitely the type of running back who's like, keep giving it to me. I'm going to get stronger. I'm not letting up.
Yeah, I'm going to get better as I get more carries.
Right.
And I think we're seeing that. Wasn't too disappointed with the offensive line. Certainly, there's still room for growth. But what? I think we gave up 2 sacks.
I believe it was just 2.
And
he was under pressure a little bit.
One of the sacks was a very well-designed blitz off the edge from a cornerback. And came on his blind side. So that's progression.
Yeah,
getting better there.
But there's a problem with that sack. I believe it was tight end that was releasing. He came up. You should always get a chip. Acknowledge the guy and we didn't. We just released, and of course Milroe to his blind side doesn't stand a chance. So that's not on Milroe.
Yeah.
That's on the receiver releasing and not at least getting a chip on the guy to slow him down. Now, would it made a difference just to, get a hit on him? Who knows? But it definitely didn't help that the guy was running free.
Yeah, I agree. But much improvement. 1 penalty for 5 yards. I think we gave up 2 sacks to a team that was.
Oh, they're tops in the country as far as sacks.
As far as pressure on the quarterback. So, man, did some things really well. And like you said, my expectation, and I know it'll be yours as well, that we have a week to heal mentally, physically, to evaluate some things. I hope that, playing LSU, we're going to have one of those more complete games. We won't be able to go silent in the first half offensively and try to beat LSU. They're really, really good offensively.
Oh, offensively, and Jaden Daniels, kudos to the kid. He put on about 15 pounds from last year. Still takes unnecessary hits, in my opinion. But the kid is good. The kid is solid. And I wasn't believing in him last year. He's made me a believer this year. Luckily, like I said, our defense is there now.
Matchup.
The game is geared toward offenses these days, so it's going to be a challenge for our defense as much as they like football in the year. So it's going to be fun.
Should be.
About 12 days. Yep.
Should be. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and talk a little bit about our defense and, of course, the upcoming game. We have this week off, but, of course, the next one's LSU. So hold your seats, Tide fans. We'll be right back with Tide Talk.
Beam wins it on a last-second kickoff return, and it's all thanks to the Big G. He's only about a foot tall, and he's not great at catching since he doesn't have any arms, But boy, when he does, he's end-to-end in a blink thanks to that 1 gig speed that makes him so special. You can tell his teammates just love playing with him. Maybe a little too much. Gig speed from Beam, made for football, available everywhere.
So Maurice, listen, bye weeks are really good, especially at this time. We played 8 straight. And to what Saban said, it's not just the physical part. He even stated that he believes our guys are okay physically. It's the mental part that we really need to break. And especially for a young team. Guys that are having to learn and adjust and process. How do you see the timing of this break right before we get into the last part of the season?
And the great thing about it is we made it through this part with only the loss. And there is a huge, as I was stating earlier, everything changes when you add pressure. And this last month of the season for everybody, all those people that are there, that still undefeated, 1 loss, is, pressure starts adding. So to take a week off at this point and kind of take a deep breath, and like Saban said, we got to look at this as basically just a time for us to sit and heal and determine where we want to be, where we want to go from here. And so I think it's the one thing I've always liked, like to your point, is for the freshmen, give them an extra week to learn, to pick up more. Saban has said there's a few freshmen that would be playing had they enrolled early and picked up on everything. And even for a quarterback, I think it's huge. It helps to, more film room to sit back and hopefully slow the game down even more, and understanding coverages and, where everything, like you said, the play that you highlighted on the sack was the blitz. Milroe, what can you do better at pre-snap to determine that they're going to send somebody off the corner?
Yeah.
Great quarterbacks find that, and they burn you for it. And anytime they were blitzing, I think I finally tested y'all about halftime when I took a breath, is middle's open. The middle was open most of the day, and he started connecting and started kind of slowing down. And, our deep outs, he's got the arm for it. It's looking good. But I just think it's a good time always, to physically heal, but to get that mental pressure off of you, at least for a week, and you can relax this Saturday and watch other teams play. And it is a huge relief. And I hope, I know it's a week off, and I think Saban said we'll practice 3 days this week.
Yeah.
But, I really don't, I'm not a big fan of guys going home and getting away. I want them to stay around. And, away games, a lot of people, a lot of students also go home this time of year just because, it's, you don't have anything going on at D-Town as far as, big games. So they'll get the town to themselves to not, get caught up, hopefully, in anything and get in any trouble.
Yeah.
But just kind of take a deep breath, relax, heal, know where you are, know where you want to be and what you got in front of you. LSU, Kentucky, Chattanooga, and North, and know that, hey, we're in the midst of this, and this is where we want to be. We didn't think we'd have 1 loss, but it is what it is. Now let's see where we want to go and what we can do for it.
Yeah.
So I think, and it also shows the maturity of a team. I hope that we take on that mindset and that we enjoy this week.
So, Maurice, at this point in the year, we knew that our defensive backfield was going to be really good. We've been saying that since day one.
Right.
But did you think our defensive front, our front 7, would be where they are at this point?
Not anywhere close to it, because I know Saban's always had usually a good rushing defense. Past 2 years, I couldn't say that, and I thought they were slipping. But the fact that we have a good rotation, we have a little bit of depth there. We've definitely proven that we have some depth at linebacker, which Chris Braswell, man, you're doing it. You're
Hey,
increasing
did
your.
you realize that you didn't see Marshall from Georgia? You didn't see him Saturday. I think he's a little banged up. So the
Yeah,
Jaheed Campbell, number 30, played pretty much, and man, played really well. He's the one that had the scoop and score at the end. Now, Braswell's the one that made the play, but still, kid scoop and score. I mean, that was huge. And you're talking
yeah,
about
yeah. The great. Well, we were talking about the beginning of the season where we had Will Anderson and Bryce Young, was everybody relying on them last year,
exactly
hoping for them to make a play. Now you're just mentioning three or four guys that
what
really, they weren't in the conversation.
right.
I mean, you knew who they were, but you didn't expect them to be doing what they're doing, and they're playing outstanding.
Yeah.
So,
Do you think, Maurice, that do you think that Kevin Steele has had a big influence on that? Experienced guy, guy's been around the block a time or two. Do you think he's had an impact on that?
I'm trying to think of a good comparison. Simple answer is yes. Uh, it's that is. Uh, I'm not going to say anything negative about the other guy, but Kevin Steele has done a phenomenal job, and that's why I wasn't too worried in the first quarter the other day, because he has shown that he'll make adjustments and they'll settle down and they'll play good. They'll play very well. And I thought, they did, midway through the first quarter, and like we talked about in the first part of the show, they settled down and they really shut down Tennessee, holding them to those two field goals. Um, I think Kevin Steele doesn't get enough credit nationally for
Right.
the job he's done at Bama. I mean, this defense is very sweet,
Well,
very sweet.
and listen, one of the things that I watch maybe a little bit differently than the average fan, but I didn't see a lot of missed assignments this past weekend. Not
So,
that we
that
haven't,
one,
not that we haven't missed any. I mean,
right?
I didn't see a lot of missed assignments. I didn't see a lot of guys that were just wide open. We
No,
talked last year. When we played Tennessee last year, the kid, I can't remember his name, the receiver that caught the 5 touchdowns for 200 yards, that's now in the NFL.
Hyde,
Yeah, I mean,
Hyde.
listen, there were guys that were wide open. Didn't see a lot of that Saturday. So and we're playing. We played the second half without Terrion Arnold.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Who I think is very valuable to our
yes,
team.
absolutely. I mean, so it's really impressive that we've been able to do what we've done with that defensive front that we were uncertain about. After losing some of the guys that we lost, and then you got guys coming in. Man, the first few games, the Keelan kid wasn't even in the lineup, and now he's a
Yeah.
force. Number 96, he's a force on the defensive front.
Oh, he has definitely made a name for himself. Going
Absolutely.
back, I was watching most of the game, but the first touchdown Tennessee had wasn't a blown coverage. They just caught us in a defensive mismatch
Great
where
matchup.
yeah. So kudos to
Absolutely.
Milton and Heupel for doing that, but it didn't happen again. And then one other time, I think in the second quarter, uh, we were confused right before the snap. They got a first down on it, but nothing much. But that was the only two times that I said, well, one was not a miscommunication, but basically defensive setup by that's on Steele, and the other one was just not knowing as far as where to line up based on their formation. It
Right.
was, but that was it. So this defense is well coached and very mature, and they're getting better by the week.
Absolutely. I think that's the key, Maurice. You know, we've talked all, we're growing. We've made some mistakes. We're learning. We're getting better every week. And, you know, I'm just really looking forward to us being able to have a break. And then, of course, we got a huge one the following weekend with LSU, but we don't have
This will
to.
be the big,
Yeah.
the remaining. And I'm not saying that we're, none of them are easy. I'm just saying that LSU statistically, which is not an easy word for me to say, is by far the best team that we will face offensively.
Yeah.
So, not saying that we can take a break after this, but it is going to be the biggest challenge up to this point.
Well, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a tough one, but at least we can breathe for now. We can rest. We'll come back next week and we'll talk about the LSU game. We'll talk about this big win that we're going to get on this bye week, and we'll come do it again next week. So, Maurice, thanks for joining me, and I hope you have a good time down there in PCB, and
Come on down.
We'll do this again next week, Tide fans, right here on 207 at 6:30 on Thursday night, and we'll see you then. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.